This week on the Squatchers Lounge podcast, David and the Reverend Jeff talk about those mysterious little pieces of equipment that people don't know enough about. They document wood knocks, whoops, and language if you're down for that sort of thing. That's right, tonight we're going to be talking about field recording. Field recorders, microphones, some things that generally capture sound and stuff. We'll also teach you how to back up media so the MIB can't take it away. And now I give to you our host, Agent J, the Reverend Jeff Kelly.
Woo, that's right. Season 3, Episode 4, kicking it off with a bang. I am indeed your host, the Reverend Jeff Kelly, and this is the Squatchers Lounge podcast. Dude, you are not kidding. Back up your files before the MIB get them. As usual, I have with me the Father David Batdorf. How you doing, buddy?
Fantastic. Backing up my files right now.
That's right. Backing up the podcast files as we talk so we don't lose them all live on the air. Yeah, people, USB sticks, SD cards, the cloud, lots of places you can hide stuff that the MIB can't get to it. Just ask those clowns that got busted. They broke into this cat's car. Well, broke in and he kind of left it open, but that's still burglary. They broke into this cat's car, stole his iPad, took selfies with his iPad, his cash, and his stuff at their apartment before they sold it off to their fence, and all that stuff went to the cloud. So, of course, they had pictures of the dumbasses that stole it all within 25 minutes of them actually stealing it. Congratulations to you guys. There you go.
One reason, like, a lot of people don't like to share the locations or put location information into your photos, but that's a great, like, if somebody's going to send selfies on Facebook and send the location out to local law enforcement, yay, idiot.
Congratulations to you guys. You lose the internet for the week. Well, as usual, this part of the podcast, guys, it's this time.
And now for the Squatchers Lounge news, bringing you the most up-to-date topics from across the interwebs week after week after week. The Squatchers Lounge podcast. Let's get newsy.
Newsy, that's right. You know, one of the things that came up today, just in the newsy kind of stuff, was this big long post from Les Stroud down in Chile. Now, the long and the short of it, you know, he's basically complaining that while he's down there in Chile trying to check in and go to Patagonia, they're giving him a hard time and not wanting to allow him into the country to do his thing because, well, other survival people who have gone there here recently haven't been real nice to Chile and Patagonia, and they're not too sure that he's going to be doing them the right way. So he starts to complain a little bit that, well, you know, if everybody just treated everybody properly, it wouldn't go this way. Boo-hoo me, now I'm kind of stuck here. And the long and the short of it is the guy was just doing this to the Bigfoot community 90 days ago. So maybe since the coin is in his, you know, box now and it's in his arena that this is happening directly to him, maybe he'll see our plight a little more clearly and, you know, see why we were complaining about it. What are your thoughts on that, David?
Yeah, I see the double standard. I mean, it probably doesn't even occur to him, you know, being outside of the community. But it's exactly the same as somebody, you know, that's not in the survival community or has never watched either of the telephone shows. It's like, well, why is Man vs. Wild any less credible than Survivor Man? Well, because there's a lot of reasons, you know, that for just if somebody was going to go out and actually teach me how to survive, I'm sure that Bear Grylls has got a lot of skills, but that's not what they're showcasing on the television show. Where Survivor Man used to be that. I'm not sure that it is anymore because they went and did Bigfooting with Todd Standing. But again, the slights against his shtick, which was like just true him with a camera in the woods doing survival. When they blew that up and went totally fabricated and you know, Man vs. Wild comes out, and then other folks come out after that too with the faux reality where his was pretty much reality at the onset. Yeah, I understand why government officials, especially in Patagonia, they could come in and say, you know what, we don't want you to film here because you're going to show people how to not survive.
right, exactly.
Helicopters to survive. That's not what we want to show people here, which I respect that, you know, but I think, yeah, he definitely did kind of...
It's like the pot calling the kettle black there for a little bit.
Yeah, he stepped on himself there. Whether I'm sure he didn't do that intentionally because he doesn't even think about that because.
No, and it's another teammate of Dr. Meldrum who, again, was also involved with Todd Standing in that whole Bigfoot North mess, and that's why we were upset about it. It's like you guys are just dragging the worst of the Bigfoot community out in front of the public to stand on the stage and say, "These are my pals." I mean, that's literally what they did to us at the Sasquatch Summit up there in, was that October?
Yeah, well, whenever it was, I didn't go. That was November. That's right.
Right. It's just kind of funny that now all of a sudden that's in his face. Anyhow, we hope Les, gets through a good adventure and moves on. We're not mad at Les. Not really mad at anybody. We just want to see better stuff. Entertain us better, people. Next up, dude. Fossil skulls suggest humans and Neanderthals live side by side in the Middle East. Are you kidding me? Now we've got a 55,000-year-old skull unearthed in an Israeli cave. It was the first Homo sapiens fossil discovered outside of Africa. Talk to me about this thing, man. I can't keep track where all these new cousins are coming from or how old they are anymore.
All straight in this. No, well, this skull isn't a cousin. This is us. This is after modern Homo sapiens became what we are today, and we see them spreading out of the area rapidly, starting about 60,000 years ago. And at 55,000 years ago, we already see them hanging out with the Neanderthals. So basically, that puts them 25,000 years. Imagine we spread it 60,000 years ago. So almost half the time that we've been expanding, we were living side by side with the Neanderthals.
Which would make a whole lot more reason why there's still 2% of the Neanderthal DNA left over in those types of European peoples.
So what's like
more chances to interbreed?
There's a couple things this week that all speculation aside and all this, that, and the other. Like this is kind of the smoking gun of we find these. Like it's not like the Nemanisi cave where it could be like, this is obviously a cave where things were dragged in and eaten. These humans, hominins, the Homo erectus, whatever you want to call them, and then this is some place where they were living and they were doing things together, and that's when you see those cultural aspects of these things come together. Well, we don't see that until later. How about that? We haven't found anything that suggests that until later, but now we find bones to suggest that before that we were already living together.
Okay, so all right, now let's just bounce on to this next thing because it seems to be friggin' related too. Now, fossils from an unknown species of human discovered in like the same amount of time period. Okay, now we've got this one. Archaeologists uncovered teeth in China that don't appear to belong to any known species of Homo that we know are not quite modern humans. So is this something brand new, like a new cousin? Is this where I'm getting it all confused?
This is interesting for a lot of reasons. So think of the things that we know were like, so I have to double check one of the dates here, but the things that we know were out and about and around. One of the things in this area of time that they're talking about is not modern Homo, obviously. So we can just throw that out. Neanderthals probably weren't even completely, their own thing yet. So this is an interesting thing. Like, is it a cousin, an offshoot of all of these things? But this is over in China. It's basically not quite Denisovan. It's not quite. It's not going to be quite Neanderthal.
It's just not quite.
It's not quite anything. So, but that's what what we're saying when we're talking about evolution is that the not quite is almost the proof of that. It could be like, is it a combination of the other things? Is it something completely different? Is it speciated? Is it its own population? Those are the things that we would expect to see in this record. A lot of them probably didn't make it, and one of the other things, and I didn't have enough time to research this before tonight's show, but is this related to, or does it look morphologically similar to those Red Deer Cave people that have the cranial features that are not similar to anything else that kind of comes?
Unfortunately, the only thing we have here is a jawbone to deal with. So we really only had the jawbone to go with on this. We weren't really going to tell any skeletal top features like the red deer cave people until we found another piece. But Jesus, let's just move right on to the next friggin' news thing that was they've got a jawbone. Is this the jawbone that now they found a jawbone in Japan as well. Fishermen just found a jawbone in Japan. That is another link, and I'm going to go right to it, daggum. You wouldn't let me do it earlier, but it's all linked together, and it's all come out this week. I actually saw it on Dr. Meldrum's Facebook page. You might not have even seen this one now. There may have even been another ancient discovery here from a jawbone that was pulled up in Japan. See, those are teeth from China. I thought we were talking about two different things pre-show. An unusually thick lower jawbone with large teeth found 15 miles out to sea. The fishermen were working in the Penju Channel off of Taiwan. Now, is this... No, I don't know. It's so confusing.
It is confusing. No, these are different things. One of them I could find... one of them published in Nature. This one, if we can find where that published, but it is from the Daily Mail .co.uk. So that you take that with a grain of salt. Like it's like one step above that is the IFL Science, but they at least post back to the source material.
Right. I'm looking for the source material on it as usual here, and we'll look deeper into it. It was just funny that there was the teeth in China. Now there's this ancient jawbone in Taiwan, which isn't, all that far from there. There could be, we've always said on our show several times that we don't know how many species of humans, human-like, human cousins, human wannabes, are actually out there in the spider web of evolution until we find more things like this.
Exactly, and there are more things to be found, and people who say, well, why don't we find the bones, to whether it's supporting evolution or supporting Bigfoot, it's like we're still finding the bones. We haven't found them all, and some of them turned into oil. There's just so many things that can go wrong when you're creating a fossil, and yeah, I'm hoping to find out more about this one. I think that was one that I just sort of passed over because it's like, I can't find a paper on that one yet, but maybe soon.
Right on. Well, what came up in my news feed this week, Doug Hudson, CloneFX, ZombieGnomes.com. Go check it out. It is the poster for the Valley of the Sasquatch that he was working on last fall. The movie is coming, and it is a full feature film, guys. This is not like, I want to go crying in Devil Creek or something. I mean, this is a full deal. Valley of the Sasquatch. It's supposed to be the scary type of Sasquatch, genre. But I like those, dadgummit. I usually vote or root for the Sasquatch to win. So if you wanted to check that out, bloody-disgusting.com has the new posters up for Valley of the Sasquatch. Well, you're a fan like I am, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely. I would definitely check it out.
Definitely going to check out. Just geeking out on the Sasquatch movies.
Yeah.
I noticed this came up the other day, and there was some debate about it, and I just kind of wanted to mention it and kind of promote it for the guys. Sasquatch Unlimited has their encounters database up online. Now, it's cool. There's almost 5,000 encounters, catalog, database, searchable. Great resource. It really, really is. But it is a pay-to-play type of deal. I believe their members might have a discount or even so much as a free membership, but out to the general public, it's like $9 a month or $50 a year to get into the database and be able to search all your Bigfoot stuff. I'm digging the idea of it. I don't know about the resource of $10 a month or $50 a year myself, but I'm digging on the resource. What are you thinking there, David?
I haven't had any time to look at this. I wouldn't even care to mention what's in there because I didn't. Obviously I don't have a membership, and I like the way that it's parsable. It seems like it might have been built off of the way that they set up the John Green database, which is something that I stand by is the way to do things, and that you could put it in to a spreadsheet and have a way of programming to search like this.
Right, and I'm pretty sure that's what this database is based off of as well. The free database that was put out by John Green here not too long ago.
Yeah.
So, hey, it's a matter of programming. They do take time. I understand it. A wise man once said, make a product worth $1, sell it for 99 cents, and then sell it a few million times. That's kind of my thing on, when you want to sell something for $1 a month. I mean, $1 a month, nobody gives a crap about. $7 a month, that's a couple of boxes of rice that people might not eat on that month. But $1 a month, you can usually find that laying around in the change jar. Just kind of food for thought. That's my idea on that. Now, this next one's kind of creepy. Chimps and gorillas need an Ebola vaccine too. The virus has wiped out 1/3 of them since 2011. 1/3 of the big monkeys and the gorillas in the Congo are eating on these Ebola bats. And, these bats are carrying the Ebola virus. It's getting down into the smaller or into the larger primates. I mean, these people go out and hunt chimps for bushmeat. Don't ask me. It's horrible, but they do. And then these are how these, a lot of these Ebola breakouts actually happen. And I'm not talking out of my butt, people. I went out and did a bunch of research when these Ebola cases were going down. I had some friends that were actually going to Africa to help, and I was scared to death that they might come back with this stuff. I mean, it's really, really scary stuff. We don't have any way to fight it. It just kind of kills itself out. And unfortunately, we're losing a lot of the big primates to this as well. Just kind of creepy. What are you thinking, David?
It's a sad state of affairs. The like you say, the bat or whatever, like it has Ebola, passes, falls to the ground. Next morning, a gorilla finds it, and it's free, cheap protein, right? Like, hey, lucky day.
Right.
Lucky day. And then they get really sick. And things happen, like altercations, and then there's blood and biting that happens between, especially chimpanzees, often swapping saliva and doing some of those close contact things that you have to do to spread that disease. And could be, I mean, it's exactly what you see in like the how things disappear. Like, how did the Paranthropus robustus disappear? Well, probably something like that. And disease plays a big role in just getting rid of species. And when you're already at that, endangered or not, or critical status, this is really scary. More so, I mean, it's scary for humans. Because we don't want any humans to die. Obviously, it's scary to think that you could actually lose gorillas and chimpanzees both in areas completely just based on this disease.
Yeah, in days, in weeks, it would be over and they would just be gone. Well, the last one of the losing type items I wanted to talk about was Dr. Meldrum was back from his Columbia Basin Badger trip. Woohoo! And he brought something cool back with us. Looks like a mud print of a Sasquatch with a possible juvenile Sasquatch, and everybody loves a juvenile Sasquatch print, next to a human track that was put there, size 15 for comparison, in the mud in the same substrate. I'm liking it. I'm actually liking the prints. They look like natural prints, especially the way that the stick sticks out of the little one. I like that a lot. Like, nobody's messed with that. That's not a stamp job. That stick was pressed down into the foot, and then it popped back up because it's a root to something.
Yeah, the stick itself popped back up. The foot, that's what people like. So many people look at footprints and how things. The foot didn't conform over the stick. The stick popped back out.
Right, exactly. Same thing with this one here. There's another piece at the bottom of the big track there. That's one of the things that people point out in the Patterson tracks, especially the one that has the big break in the middle of it. That's not from the mid-tarsal break. That's from the stick that was laying in the ground that when the animal walked across it, the foot conformed to the stick. The stick doesn't conform to the foot.
Which is where people confuse immediately what the mid-tarsal break is, because they look at that and they're looking at something completely different, and that actually, where that lateral stripe is pretty much also where a bare double step. If you see that, it's probably a bare double step unless there's a stick right there.
Right, exactly. Now this is a pure flat. It looks like a natural track to me, and it looks like it looks like toes in first rather than heel in first to me.
Well,
I mean,
and you look through the center of the foot, whether it's a flexible foot or not. There's not going to be a ridge there, even if it's a flexible foot. If you look at this, there is no differentiation whatsoever between the heel of the foot and those toes, and that's telling.
and it actually looks like when it pushed out of it, it pushed that natural dirt to the right side of it as it was leaving the track, and it's actually rolled over from the animal lifting its foot out and going on to the next track. Now, I wish there was a track way. I wish there were several tracks that would be able to be compared to it. But that itself looks, I would cast this track. This would be a track that I would go get the casting material for, and I would definitely cast this track because it's got enough detail in it to learn something from.
Whether it's like, it's very similar. Like, it could be a really big dude who never wore shoes in his life or something like that. But this would be interesting enough to me where I would capture that.
I would probably cast the whole thing intact, all three prints together in one piece of plaster.
Honestly, like, it'll take more time to dry, but if you can get a large, people just take that. It's like taking the photograph, cropping it down to something that has no context whatsoever, and then sharing it on Facebook. It's the same thing by just taking the exact outline of the foot. Just take a big area. Like, it'll take longer to dry, but if it's an area where you can do it, I mean,
I would be willing to wait a whole 24-hour period for this to dry properly before I'd even think about taking it out of the ground.
Okay.
I mean,
if you're suspecting there's a Sasquatch in the area, why wouldn't you wait 24 hours?
Right, exactly. If that's that fresh of a track.
Yeah, if it's a fresh track, why would you ever take it and leave?
Now, I can tell from the fresh track that is to the left of it that it's not quite as fresh as the human track. The human track's got a darker tone to the actual dirt than what this bigger track in the center is. But it's not that old. It's not drying and cracking out, which means it's probably less than 72 hours.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, just looking at it, I missed this on Facebook apparently. Like, just looking at it for the first time, this is something that I would cast just for interesting. Like, it is interesting and to share and to have for a later date, and especially with a person's foot who's obviously been in a shoe next to, for juxtaposition with the arch, with this, with that, with the other. I mean, that's really interesting.
Yep, I definitely thought so myself. So that was the newsy stuff that we had coming at you this week, guys. Do you have anything that I missed, David?
I think that was it. That was it.
That was it.
Since it's sitting right here, I should just say, like, if you it actually reads a lot like an episode of the Squatchers Lounge podcast. But if you read the New Scientific American, the Inside the Neanderthal Mind, which, I love talking about this sort of thing. This actually kind of talks about the arguments back and forth, like Jeff and I have about, well, what is this and what is culture, what is that, and how it's really difficult to define without an actual subject or without something else. But it talks about some of the interesting things, and that our cousins were probably more clever than we gave them credit for 10 years ago, but there's still a lot of people that say, well, wait just 1 minute because... So, yeah, it's a really great read.
I want to check it out myself for sure. Well, it is that time of the podcast, guys. It's time for your lesson. Time to go squashing with your old pal Wes. Lessons to go by that as soon as I can find it, because I hit it this week. Sorry that. Oh, my goodness. There we go.
Number 25. Make sure all windows open and close easily. No one wants to get hotboxed in your bean and beer farts while you're out road squatching. Don't let your obituary read death by beer fart. Check those windows. Come check out my recent work and my art for sale at weslosner.com. Stay squatchy, my friends.
Well, there you have it. Check those windows. Make sure they go up and down, because don't let your obituary read death by squatching. Thanks for that, Wes. Sorry I screwed up the intro on it again this week. I swear to God, it'll get better. But the content's great, man. Keep it coming. David, it is that time of the week, though, buddy. We promised this update, so let's go ahead and give it to everybody. It's time for your MIB update, everyone.
Edwards, let's put it on.
Put what on?
The last suit you'll ever wear.
Oh no, it's those damn men in black again.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice. Tumbling down the rabbit hole? This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
And with that, guys, I'm gonna lay it out for you, all the dirty little things that I was able to dig up on the situation there in Texas since last week, actually since the last 10 days. Now, you guys know that we tried. We really, really tried. I reached out to every single person that I could that was involved, and I kept getting the MIB fist in my face every time I did. We can't talk about it. Nobody can talk about it. Well, you're sure talking about it on other podcasts, and everybody but the Garretts are talking about it. So I'm going to kind of break down the investigation for what I was able to determine from it. Now, every time I got close, I was just told I didn't know what I was talking about. Go get the facts straight. Well, after watching our show last week, I figured it out. That was actually the best information I could come up with. I even went back and listened to Bob Garrett's claims firsthand. Now, I know it was verified that the government that there was government contact with Bob and his family from the Department of Interior. That's all well and good. Something about that tent video, they had part in their investigations and they wanted that copy of the video, and they played the FU card. Well, when you play the FU card to the federal government who just wants a copy of your tape, they're not telling you got to delete it. They're just talking about, we want a copy of it. You can't talk about it until the case is over. You don't get to play the FU card. You get to hand over a copy of your video, and you don't talk about it until it's over with. So there was a government contact where Bob was threatened with jail time because he was obstructing justice in a government investigation. You can't do stuff like that. They expect not to have to go and get a lawyer to stay out of jail. Fine. That in itself isn't all that impressive. You obstruct justice in an active case, and you're going to get pressured to do the right thing. Fine. After that, the case got gag ordered, and that's when it went all MIB and weirdo. Okay? Bob got hacked. Fine. I don't have a problem with that. Bob admittedly on the air on several podcasts talked about how technically uninclined the man was. So you can imagine for people who deal with him, to give him an easy password to get into things that he can actually remember probably is what was done. So once you hack one password, it probably either was across the board of all of his accounts or just easy enough passwords to be able to guess. But sure, no doubt about it, Bob got hacked. But no way can I find any link from one event to the other. Yes, the tent video got investigated. Fine. Yes, he got hacked. But no, it wasn't the government that did it. It could have very simply been one of the listeners to the podcast that just thought it would be just a funny joke to do this type of thing, and we've seen it happen before. Lots of people have had their passwords hacked, had their YouTube channels taken down, had their Facebook accounts messed with. It happens from time to time. I just cannot believe that those events are to be linked. But here's the issue that I'm left with at the end of the day. They still insist that this all has to do with a murderous Bigfoot that killed 2 people and threw their bodies in the trees. Yes, sensationalism from some of the connected podcasts and whoever they are that are able to talk a big game when the principals are gagged, but the principals are not stopping them from making these claims either. So if I get told, shut up and go away, we can't talk about it, I'm never going to be able to get to the bottom of it. So we're left with 2 choices. Option A, I can believe that Bob Garrett is a target of an MIB investigation, 5 sheriff's office, multiple parks departments, the federal government is covering up murderous Bigfoot attacks near the Big Thicket in East Texas. Or B, you can take the blue pill, wake up in your bed, believing whatever it is that you want to be able to believe, and the story ends as it should. That's exactly where I'm at.
This sermon was brought to you by the Reverend Jeff Kelly. May the Squatch be with you.
Suck it!
David, I mean, you've seen how deep I went down this rabbit hole chasing this story, and it really almost drove me to the point that I wanted to reach out and touch someone. What are your final thoughts on all this mess?
I took the blue pill and then started looking at all of this. Somebody on one of the might have been on your YouTube channel on the podcast suggested and put up links to all the audio of Bob Garrett's tales, and so I went and I listened to all that. I'm sure that's what you were referring to as well. But what it all boils down to is, on the Squatchers Lounge podcast, extraordinary claims require some semblance of documentation or proof. And that the bottom line, I can't imagine. I have trouble with Jeffrey's story about Sasquatch existing. Me being like somebody who has not had an experience, it's a stretch to do that. In government involvement, and all of these other things, MLBs, aliens, all the things that we pull into the Sasquatch thing, it makes it harder than it was in the first place to even look at. So people are critical. We're not talking about this, why don't you go ask the source? Well, we tried.
Several times,
and we went sources out, even we went secondhand sources. And so when people were critical, secondhand, sources, go look at this, look at this broadcast and that broadcast. Well, yeah, but we have more questions than just the broadcast. Is anybody just taking that at face value?
Yes, that's exactly what they're doing.
There's more questions, and we can't ask direct questions, so we're getting it secondhand, but not even secondhand. We tried secondhand, and we got to go to third hand, and the third hand is even more unbelievable than the second or first hand was.
And then, the third hand has no idea what the original story actually is.
Yeah, and so I almost went to, and I started researching. I almost went to the lengths of going to the appropriate counties in Texas and searching, just scrolling back through court files and filings, and it sounds like the case had been thrown out because he probably cooperated and he probably went through with the gag order and he probably went bye-bye. I was going to look for documentation, and some other people that are more, have more time on their hands than I do, because I don't have that much time on my hands, could go through and look at that and find out what the truth of that matter is. It wasn't easily parsable by me, because every time I put in Bob Garrett and Texas, it just came up with podcasts and
murderous Bigfoots
and Bigfoot things. So I couldn't get past that. So it's
I'm not making this up, right? I mean, you've seen the tags and the connection to this whole murderous Bigfoot and being thrown in trees. I mean, I'm not just speaking this out. This is literally what's on these podcast pages, and these people are talking this way, correct?
Correct. The other Bob Garretts in Texas are not the Bob Garrett we're looking for that came up. I found plenty of Facebook.
Well, he's back. As a matter of fact, the old Robert Garrett is back on Facebook. His Facebook account is back. His YouTube channel is back. He doesn't have any videos on his YouTube channel, so I guess they actually got deleted. But he is back on Facebook. He is back on YouTube. And I just saw pictures of Brandon Garrett somewhere Bigfooting last weekend. So apparently they're back to Bigfoot general, but now this is all just going to go under the carpet.
And let's just, I just have to say, I have nothing but respect for, all of the Garrett Bigfooters. They're out there, they're doing the thing, they're doing the right thing. What I have trouble with is the people that are not the Garretts. So Brandon Garrett gave us a little bit of a hard time because he thinks that we're making slanders against his father or whatever, and we're giving the situation a hard time, because these are the types of situations that you have to give a hard time to get to the truth of the matter, and that's what we do on this show. Right. And we're doing
try to work out all the bullshit.
Yeah, but for the most part, getting out there and doing the thing, that whole family does more time than most people could dream of. So I got nothing but respect for the Garretts, but you can't take the situation just with a grain of salt. And I do. I personally, and a lot of people, should have more questions about the situation than just go listen to the source material, because the source material should cause questions. It should make questions come up in your mind.
And when I got told to, go talk to the Garretts, go talk to the Garretts, I tried. Last week we put out an honest, heartfelt, come talk to us. Give us an interview. Tell us the story from the start to the finish as much as you can. Let's talk about what you can talk about. Let's not talk about what you cannot talk about. We understand it, but we're trying to get a solidifying end to all of this that there isn't going to seem to be. Now, if it's going back to Bigfooting business as usual, would you not go back to the dens they were talking about in the Sasquatch Chronicle, or in the podcast they were talking about, finding dugout dens and where these Bigfoot are living? Would that not be like the first place you go back to investigate?
For me, who says that they're not? But they're not being public about any of the things that they're doing, and that's...
it's probably the smartest thing in the world you can do with that. I agree.
Yeah. So, who knows what's going on from there? All I know is that we can't get to the bottom of the situation, and for both Jeff and I'm sure I can speak that just drives the crap out of us, because we can't, like, usually we can reach out to somebody, get a quote, get corrected, but we can't get corrected right now because that nobody can talk, and that sounds like a proper gag order. I think 2 episodes ago, I said it's probably just it's part of an ongoing investigation. He can't talk about it, and some people are blowing it up. His thoughts about it aside, he can't talk about it anyway, even if he's changed his mind. Whatever.
Right. Exactly. So with that, we'll go ahead and leave the MIB stuff alone for a while, but get off my back about it, because I tried to get to the bottom of it, and there just is no bottom. The rabbit hole just keeps following Alice. She ain't nowhere to be found down there. There's no explanations for any of it. If you want to know the answers to that stuff, I guess go listen to the podcast and talk to the guys that are still talking about it, because I don't know where they're getting their information from. I've talked to 24 people, and I can't get no more than what I've just presented to you. I think the Garrett family as Bigfooters are as about legit Bigfooters as you can get. I think their hearts are in the right place. I think their attitudes are in the right place. No one here has ever attacked the Garretts personally. It was the story that was bullshit from the start, and to me, it's still bullshit because there's too many fingers in the pot, and now nobody can actually talk about it. So, with that, until we find out some new video of murderous Bigfoot throwing bodies in the trees and eating the brains of small children, we'll leave that one alone and move on to tonight's topic. Yay, we're going to get to talk about audio recorders.
And now for tonight's topic.
That's right, Bigfoot field audio, what you're going to do, how you're going to get it, and why is it important to you? Well, I mean, if anybody that's out there, we run around with digital recorders for one reason and one reason only. We're praying that we would get to hear something like this in the middle of the night. That's what you're looking for out there. That's why we're running around with all these stupid digital audio recorders. But how do you get audio like that clean enough to be able to listen to? David, what are your first thoughts on, best pieces of equipment to use?
I have a ton of thoughts, and I could go way too in-depth with this, because I record audio. I love audio. I love gear. And let's just boil it down to just the bare bones basics right now. We have about 3 different types of scenarios, different ways of capturing audio. You've got the stereo field, everybody's little Zoom recorder. You can fit it in your pocket. It's great to take with you. That's a great piece of squatching gear. You can spend $99 and get a competent, like a reasonable audio recorder to capture sounds from a reasonable distance from you. We have parabolic recording, which works much like a zoom on a camera. The farther that you hone down that field of audio that's coming in, the sound that's coming in, the farther you're going to be able to look, because you can amplify farther, and the background noise isn't going to get you as much, just the ambient noise. And then you have what I would just call ambient recording. It could be a singular source. You're just trying to get the very basics captured, just what's going on around you. And you can do all of these things very cheaply. You can do it from hundreds of dollars to thousands and thousands of dollars. This guy, the guy, here's this guy right here has got the body pack. He's got the full deal. He's powered. He's listening. He's he's doing everything that you need to do. It looks like he's got a short shotgun microphone here. I can talk about that in a little bit too, and using a parabolic dish to collect sound, to hone it, and to look. He can increase the input gain on that to a point where you can hear farther in a narrow distance. But that's not really good unless you know where a Sasquatch is going to be.
Right, I was going to say that because I spent an entire summer learning how to use my parabolic setup, and I got a nice setup. I mean, I built it myself. I got a good proper dish and a good microphone and a good unit to drive it. And what's nice is it's drivable by any digital audio recorder that has a mic in, which is perfect. But you can't hear the forest for the friggin' animals. If you're literally standing at a creek like this, or standing at a lake like this at night, you can't hear the other side of the lake that you're pointing at for all the crap that's between you and it.
The whole point of a parabolic microphone, like you think of, that's how they get the field noise, the crunch of the football, the pads and the football helmets together on game day. You're collecting the sound in this dish. It works very much the same way as a very a super telephoto lens. When you put that on your camera, you don't have the width of field of view that you had before. You can see farther, you can hear clearly farther, but you're increasing the intensity of the sound. So everything between you and that microphone, directly between you and that microphone, is going to be louder because you're trying to hear farther.
The wind through the leaves of grass. Now, this is my favorite type of recorder right here. I don't have a Zune. I've got my Tascam, but it's the same, double microphone, stereo mic, built-in windscreen, right around $100 piece of equipment.
Well, this one's more than $100. This one it has the external inputs as well. It doesn't probably have, you probably wouldn't use a high-end microphone on that because it wouldn't have the preamplification. It wouldn't have the power to power that. But the X and Y stereo application, that's, for all intents and purposes, I could probably just say right now that this or one of the cheap $99 Zoom recorders is adequate, and people can help you modify that audio if need be, but you're only going to hear a particular distance because there's two ways that you can set up a microphone to hear things, and this is very much like the human ear, which the farther away it goes, the more it dissipates in a radial fashion. Your amplitude coming in will be less however far you go away in a circular fashion. Something like a shotgun mic, you can actually, something that's out of field of view, or a field of view, if you're looking directly at something and you're pointing your microphone at it, you could probably hear it in that. But if it was 20 feet to the left, you might not be able to hear it, because the farther you go outside of that field of view directly forward, it dissipates much more quickly than it does directly forward. It's a shotgun mic. It's supposed to hear directly in front of you.
Now, one of the things you and I were talking about the other day that I wanted to make sure we got covered tonight was these little handheld deals, almost all of them have a mic limiter to where it's auto-adjusted or it's manually adjusted for the sensitivity of the microphones. Now, most people just leave them to where the auto-sensitivity is on so that the device itself kind of jacks up the sensitivity so that whatever it's recording gets recorded at max. And where you and I were talking about to set it to a manual level to where right on top of it would peak and then allow it to actually get softer and louder through it. and that would reduce a lot of the white noise that you hear in the background from that autometer jacking up the mic limit all the way, waiting to hear for something.
There's a lot of things that you can do. Basically, what a limiter sounds like, or a compression sounds like, you're bringing the audio down. Well, technically you are when it gets to a certain point, but you compensate by raising the level of everything. So really, you're just bringing the air noise up enough to where something faint in the distance will be audible.
And we can do that after the fact. Exactly.
Everybody can do that after the fact. What you should, if you should try to buy a model that you can actually set the input sensitivity on, to a point where if you walk up to it and you scream at it, it doesn't clip. You know, it doesn't go to the red light. It doesn't go all the way past 0. You know, like. I love that picture, by the way. Yeah, so you definitely shout at the microphone and see that the bars don't go past, they don't go into the red, and then just walk away.
Yeah, so the limit doesn't go up and down. That way you know your limits are already set. And if something's howling in the distance, just because your limiter's jacked up doesn't mean you're going to catch it on audio anyhow. So you're really just kind of crunching on everything else to catch those faraway howls. And then when you do have stuff that's right up close, well, the computer's got to recalculate the mic input and everything else while it's trying to capture the audio at the same time.
It just means that it won't sound like this when you plug it into your computer.
Right, and that's why we're trying to help with the setups. You know,
exactly.
so that
if you can find a unit that has a manually adjustable, like input, mic trim, whatever they call it.
I know my DR05 has it on Tascam, and I picked this thing up for $89, like all the time. Like all day long on eBay, you can go get these Tascam DR05s, and they have a completely adjustable mic sensitivity on them.
But so you do want it like any other application. You want it the loudest thing that you could possibly imagine. Maybe so right up against it and shouting, like unless you throw it in between a clan of Bigfoots, you're not going to do that. But stand 30 feet away and give your whoop and make sure it doesn't clip or something. So the closest thing, you're sure that you're not going to destroy the audio. Make it as loud as you can without going into the red at the closest, loudest thing you think, and then just let it go and let nature take its course. If you find something in the audio after that, then you can go and you can manipulate it later. And if you don't have the means to do that, there are friends that can help you out.
Contact us. We'll help you out. No problem. If you've got real audio, I will spend days on it. I love real audio.
If somebody's got real good raw audio, I will scrub that up, and we can hear what's really going on.
Now, one of the other things I like to do with these is I black them out. I'll actually take black electrical tape, and I will tape up all the little red flicker lights. And once I have them set, mind you, and I have the audio profile in there that I want, I black them all out. Because there are times when you think things are following you, and if you think that there's a wood ape following you, well, if you just kind of sat down on a stump that you can identify later and left your recorder behind, if it didn't have any lights on it, your wood ape wouldn't know that it was there. So you might get lucky enough to be able to have something walk right up on it and stand over top of it, breathe or talk or samurai chat or anything in between. But if the bright lights are on them, and they do stick out, and animals will avoid these things like the plague if they're out there just like lit up like a flashlight. So if you really are using them in the field as you want them to actually be usable, black them out before you use them and set them somewhere. Otherwise, you're just like putting up a beacon that says human here.
Another thing, and can actually help, and something that I've thought about is for a lot of the shotgun mics, you can get like I wanted the Rode attachment that goes on to the DSLR camera for filming, yada yada yada. Shotgun mic that works and it can be powered off of your camera. On top of that, you could put what's called a quote unquote dead cat, which is their windsock. That goes, to keep that background noise down, which is something really great. But I thought you could just take a Zoom stereo mic, put it all the way inside the dead cat, because it's not got that long, shotgun mic form factor. You could put the whole Zoom in there and just put a rubber band around the bottom of it, and it would just hold it right there, and you could just toss that wherever, and it would just be this little furry gray thing hanging out on the ground. Not a bad idea, if you ask me. And so $100 for the cheap zoom that will fit inside the dead cat, which is like $10. I mean, you're not looking at a huge amount of money. You can go crazy on this topic. Absolutely. And I've looked into it. I was like, what would you need to do certain things, like capture infrasound, other things? And it's a really, really expensive setup. I mean, you're looking at probably at least $3,000. At least.
Just to be able to capture something that we can't hear.
Well, okay, at least $3,000 for the microphone setup. Let me put up a little.
Oh, good grief! Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah. So $3,000. If you really, really are passionate about capturing audio and infrasound,
that's not it.
Not it.
That's not it. We're looking at teeth. We're looking at your messages to me.
Weird.
Yeah,
let's
strange.
That.
Yeah, we'll stop screen sharing that real quick. And I don't think there was anything in danger there, giving out any show secrets. That looks like a little better.
Earthworks microphones.
Yeah.
I would love these for so many applications in recording. You know, it just makes me kind of drool a little bit. Blah, blah, blah. No, these quiet TCs aren't. They will take up to 142 decibels, so it won't clip if you're trying to record a jet taking off.
Right.
It goes
That's
up
like 90.
50 kilohertz. Human hearing probably peters out around
27.
Kilohertz.
Yeah, 24, 27
kilohertz. Will record audio down to 3 hertz, which does include infrasound, because infrasound is anything below like 20 to 12 hertz, depending on the individual human. So when we're talking about recording like elephant infrasound and all the aspects of that, and even ultrasound, like, you know, these mics can do that. You can put it into an audio imager and feel safe that you're getting the right data. For $3,000 for a match set. Now, to drive those, you're probably going to need a $2,000 to $3,000 field recorder body pack with the right, right amount of preamplification and all of that stuff. But these are just, I mean, delicious mics to come in a handful with velvet and oh my god,
yummy.
But the polar pattern, this is something I can talk about. Okay, so the frequency response plus or minus, these are the flattest microphone you'll ever have. This graph just makes me crazy. But you see, down to that 3 hertz, it really does fall off starting about 7 hertz, which still is infrasound, by the way. Polar pattern, if we're talking about those shotgun mics, if you look at the 0 degrees looking directly ahead of you, straight ahead, the polar pattern is going to be very short out here. Behind you, almost nothing, and then just a little flicker out here. This is a full 180-degree polar pattern. You can point these things in completely opposite directions. They're going to plus or minus, like the bass response is going to be pretty much 360 degrees. They're almost a stereo mic in and of themselves. Amazing. And these are the sort of things that we need to be looking at. But if you were really
this is what the Falcon Project needs to be flying on their blimp.
If you had funding and you were going to buy these, you would actually probably have to get cheaper microphones if you were going to set up an array, and we can talk about this in a second, to get a triangulation of direction, like a cardinal direction to where the sound came from, because these would pick up so much sound and all of the sound. Shotgun microphones, they're anywhere from $1,000 to a couple $100. This is the Rode microphone that I want. And
that's basically a parabolic without the dish.
Correct. And if you put a dish around this, it accentuates this mic's ability to do what it does.
Right.
And this, so this is a very focused. I don't know if I'll be able. These probably don't have the actual.
Probably 20 degrees.
Actual polar pattern listed here. No, this is not what they do on this side. But anyway, so but really, this is the one that I'm talking about. $999 zoom. It's got an XY back and forth. If you set up a couple of these right around each other, like if you put one, like imagine this circle is which you're lining up one on top of the other, so it's like your cardinal degrees, north, south, east, west. You could probably based on left, right, 4 tracks, and the attenuation of those 4 tracks of the same sound. Figure out, and there is a calculation. Somebody was actually telling me there is a calculation that you can use, and it's easy to find. I have a link somewhere to triangulate the actual direction from which the sound came. So you would literally only need 2 of these to figure out which way the sound came from.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
Yeah, you can figure that out pretty easy. This is not going to get you.
I might have to look into getting a couple of those and doing some experiments in the Sierras this year.
Yeah, exactly. There's no. You just have to figure out, like with this XY, like if it's hard to do. If this is north, you'd have to have one pointing south. If this is east, you'd have to, like.
Right. Well, I'd set them up on tripods and actually, set them up.
Exactly, but you could take that and figure out a general direction, because east and west, one would be louder, one would be quieter, because of the polarity patterns of these aren't that full 360 degrees like the mics I was showing you. They're going to have a lack of attenuation from behind them, which is why they make good stereo microphones, because one will show you one direction, one will show you the other. So if you use 2 of those in tandem, you could potentially really figure out the actual direction. And if you put them in a place where you have a GPS marker, you could probably figure out, what might be over in that direction. Great research tools. There's no reason that you should say, oh, well, I have a $100 recorder, so it's no good. No, this is definitely good, and 2496 kilohertz in wave format. You won't get the life out of it, but you don't need to put that out there for 3 days necessarily. If you're in an area like the Sierras where you're there every day, you just have to charge it in the afternoon while you're having a sandwich. I mean,
exactly. And we know we got lots of those chargers out in the field now.
Exactly. And so, I mean, as far as that goes, what is field recording? It is taking in the ambient sound of the area that you're in. There's 2 ways of doing it. One, with that full 360 degree sound or a stereo microphone setup, and putting somebody into the space that you are in currently. Another way is with that parabolic setup or that shotgun setup to basically, it's like putting binoculars on. What you're looking at only is what you're seeing. What you're trying to show somebody only is what they're hearing. And there's that array setup where you can do that multi-directional sort of thing, which is good for calculating a bearing on which the source of audio is.
And that's a really important thing to know.
Exactly, because if say you're sitting up in that Sierra camp and you have a GPS coordinate locked into where that audio recorder is. You know exactly where that audio recorder is, and you know exactly where north, south, east, and west are, obviously, based upon that. And you can say, because of that from tracks 1, 2, 3, and 4, track 2 and track 1 were the loudest. And you can actually come up with the percentage between those two if you measure distance of the waveform, blah, 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 to figure out an exact degree heading based on 360 degrees, and you say, it's that way, exactly that way. There's no way it could be anything other than that way. Now you put it into Google Earth or whatever. What is that way?
Right. Because that'll decide on where the next week's camp is.
Yeah, and or that day hike over, and you'd be like, I need to go there because
that's where these sounds are coming from.
And I need to figure out what exactly is there and why were they there and where is their sign. Those are the kinds of things that the audio recorders could be used for, but I don't see them using them applicably like that right now. There may be some people that are doing that, and I'm just not aware of it, but I'm not seeing that, and that's what gets me so excited about. I mean, if I bought one of those Zooms, I would buy 2.
Yeah, I'm definitely right down there with you. My goodness, man, we have ripped through the minutes this week again, my man. And I got to tell you, this was a good show. I enjoyed myself. The MIB stuff, we're pretty much done with it until it rears its ugly head again. I mean, we're going to try and keep to the what we can see is the truth of it. I'm sorry that people were confused. I thought that we were calling Bob Garrett a liar, and that's not what is happening here. We just tried to get to the bottom of a situation that was just getting so messy, and there was no way out of it. But, down in the end with the audio recording, dude, I really think that the more recorders we have out there like game cams, the more audio we're going to start collecting.
We can put it against other things. You can go to the Macaulay Lab of Ornithology and try to find other things that sound like it. You can do all sorts of things. Share it, let people listen to it, see what they think, and but that was one of the things when we went to that Brown property. The one thing that I really, we had these audio recorders out there, but we didn't have them in any sort of array that we could calculate where the sound actually came from, and or how far away it was, and that was an issue. And those are the sort of controls that I would put on something like that in the future, so that you could just do some simple math, simple geometry, and figure this out.
Well, until we get back to it next week, guys, we're going to appreciate everybody that's watching tonight. Thanks for watching the Squatchers Lounge Podcast Season 3, Episode 4. For the Father David Batdorf, I am your host, the Reverend Jeff Kelly, and we want to say thanks for watching, and may the Squatch be with you. Yeah, field audio. It's a Sam Squanch.
There's only one way to record a Sam Squanch. With a microphone.
Poor Biggie. He can't even take a crap without being left alone. Look at him, man. He's sad. But that's a shotgun microphone.
Yeah, right above the Sasquatch, so you don't get the background sound.
That's right.
Going with that?
Get that straight up Sasquatch poop sound.
If you know the Sasquatch is right under your boom, use that shotgun mic and the Parabolic.